Well, hello. Crack open tepid Genesee and watch the pictures as they travel through your neighbor's Wi-Fi. It's the Rees Company. I'm Steve Rees, the bull of American broadcasting, alongside the great Chris Morganti. Lots going on. Very exciting things to talk about. We're going to tease next week's movie of the week. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But before that, we're going to talk about part two, segment two, of the new Peter Jackson Beatles documentary, Get Back. But before that, I just want to express my excitement for this coming Sunday. Are you excited as well, Chris?
Oh, yeah, very excited. You're talking, of course, about the great championship that will be decided this weekend.
Correct.
Such a great build-up all season for it. I can't wait.
And a great matchup, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a matchup for the ages.
Yeah, I think the whole season has been worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to see this kind of a finish.
Yeah. And, I mean, I guess we should just, get it out of the way. Who we're supporting.
Sure.
Who are you siding?
Well, Hamilton, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like Hamilton has won too many championships recently, and I'm just hoping that someone new can win this year.
Too many championships?
Yeah.
Recently?
Yeah, I mean,
well,
ridiculous.
Hamilton did win quite frequently. In fact, in every decade of the 20th century, but have yet to win this century. In fact, the last championship was in 1998 for Hamilton.
No, Steve, I think you're confused. Hamilton has won the last 4 championships. And this could be a 5th on Sunday. So I don't know where you're going with this.
Well, I know a little bit about Hamilton. In fact, I know quite a lot. And I can
sound
say
like
that
you do.
You're completely wrong about this.
No, I'm pretty sure that you're confused.
Okay. Well, are you not rooting for Hamilton? You just said you're not. Why is that?
Well,
Apart from you think there's this dynasty that doesn't exist.
There's this dynasty, and I'm ready for it to end. I'm ready for something new. And that's, of course, why I have this Red Bull here in front of me, because I'm demonstrating my support for the opposite side.
What does Red Bull have anything to do with any of the competitors this
Steve,
Sunday?
I don't think you have any concept of what has happened this season and what the championship is about.
I've been watching all season. The championship is about pride.
Yes.
It's about achievement.
Yes.
It's about hard work paying off.
Yeah. It's also about
facing adversity.
The end of a dynasty. It's
there
time for someone to move over.
A fictional dynasty.
And let the new blood take over, who's demonstrated their dominance throughout the whole season. I don't understand why we're so
well.
off
I will say that that Hamilton's competitor has indeed showed dominance throughout the whole season.
Yeah,
I do agree with that.
I believe they are favored,
but we're going to find out that Hamilton will succeed.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I mean, this says it all right here.
I don't see what Red Bull has to do with anything. You think this is? They're not playing soccer.
Well, no, of course they're not playing soccer. I mean, what kind of idiots would you be to show up on this show and talk about soccer? No one would do that. Obviously, we're talking about the great sport of Formula One racing.
What?
The Formula One championship between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen of Red Bull Racing.
Oh. See, I think we're misunderstanding each other here.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, I'm talking about the Hamilton Tiger Cats facing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in this Sunday's Grey Cup.
Oh. Like the Oski Wee Wee people?
If that's what you want to call them. In fact, to show support, I brought Stripes, the mascot. I have a little Stripes. I thought I'd bring him so he can hang out in the studio.
Get him up a little bit.
And let the people see him.
Oh, and I see you're also wearing a Hamilton Tiger Cats T-shirt.
As I am sometimes wont to do, indeed.
Yes, I neglected to notice that or to take any notice of the what's it called? The khaki cup?
The Grey Cup.
Oh, the Grey Cup. Right. Okay. Well, have fun with that. I'll be watching the Formula One Championship on Sunday and rooting for, of course, Max Verstappen of Red Bull Racing.
Well, in this case, we can support each other and wish the best for those we respectively support.
Yeah, it seems how our interests do not, what was the line from The Godfather? Our interests do not conflict.
Conflict.
Yes.
So in that case, I think we did it. Oski Wee Wee.
Do you want to hand me
Stripes?
Tony the Tiger, Stripes the Tiger over there? We'll try and get our mutual support.
It's a tiger cat
Going for these Here we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, I don't think that's that's all right.
There we go.
Yeah, you can see his face.
Well, might as well
Can't
show
see
our
yours, though.
support.
Can't see all of yours.
That no one needs to see that, Steve. We're all good.
So last week we talked extensively about episode 1 of Peter Jackson's Get Back documentary that focuses on the Beatles and their project that turned out to be the album Let It Be.
Right. And we both talked about how we had such high expectations going into part 1, and I know in my case, it exceeded my expectations.
Absolutely.
It was that good and that enjoyable, that informative. I just loved it so much. I cannot say the same thing about part 2, unfortunately. I felt like it dragged a little bit, and I now see why The Hobbit was stretched out into a trilogy when it was only one book. Peter Jackson made that trilogy as well. But I did, and we'll talk about part 2, but I just want to preface all that by saying I did start watching part 3, and I believe that will be every bit as good, if not better, than part 1. But I was not able to finish watching it, so we'll have to talk about that next week.
Right. Well, I have seen part 3, and I will concur with your prediction. It definitely is just as immersive as the rest of it, but everything's coming to a head.
Yeah.
And what you see is far fuller than what we've ever known or seen before regarding their final performance as a live band.
It's heading towards a conclusion that we all know about.
But all the mechanics of it and how they ended up in that situation and what it actually looked like on that day. That's another thing. In the original, all the footage we've ever seen has been very claustrophobic. But this opens it up. You see basically the entire neighborhood. And we're going to talk about this next week. Right now, we're stuck talking to you about episode 2. Now, I don't think it was I don't think it dragged as much as you remember it.
Okay.
Because I was able to watch some of it again this morning. And, let's just bring people up to speed onto where this episode begins.
Okay. So it ended, the end of the first episode, George had left.
Right.
He said he didn't want to be, I don't know if he said he didn't want to be part of the Beatles anymore, but he pretty much said that when he said, I'll see you in the clubs.
Yeah. Well, I think he also said, I'm leaving the band. I'm leaving the Beatles.
Okay, maybe he did say
the Beatles. Yeah. Something to that effect. But he did indicate that he was finished.
Yeah. And they said, well, if he's not back by Tuesday, we'll get Clapton.
Right.
But then I guess part 2, they're kind of strategizing how to get him back.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
What they did on Sunday, that was on Friday when George left. On Sunday, they met with him and were unsuccessful in talking him back into the group.
Yeah, he basically told him to leave his house.
Right. And then the next day, Ringo's the only one who shows up at the studio.
On time, yes.
On time. And there's some doubt as to whether any of the other remaining Beatles are going to appear. So they make a round of phone calls, and Paul and Linda show up next. And they're talking about everything that's going on. And somebody, I think one of the directors of the original film, mentions the whole situation with Yoko being in the studio.
Right.
And I think this is one of the key parts to the whole documentary.
Yes.
Because Paul speaks kind of at length here about John and about Yoko and their relationship. And I copied down some quotes because I want to get this right. I think this is historically important.
Yes.
For the people who haven't seen it and may not know that Paul said these things. Paul says, they're trying to be as near together as they can. They want to stay together, those two. So it's all right. Let the young loves stay together. But it's not that bad, you know. So then Paul is asked if he and John wrote more together before Yoko appeared. Paul says yes, but explains, and I'm paraphrasing here, Chris,
right,
that's mainly because at that time they lived together and they traveled together in those days, and so their lives were more conducive to collaboration.
Yeah, like they were in hotels together for most of their early and mid-20s. So
right, and when you're that young and you're trying to take over the world, you all have a similar goal. You're in the same boat. You're fighting the same battles. But when you succeed, when all your needs are met, all your satisfaction is met, you reach those goals, then you have a lot of money and you have more freedom to pursue your outside interests.
Yeah, like getting engaged to a woman.
right?
Right.
And if you're in a band like the Beatles, which in their case, with the exception of Ringo, they'd all been in the Beatles since they were teenagers.
Right.
So then you make that kind of money, you start to realize that, hey, maybe I'm interested in doing this with my life, not necessarily being a Beatle or pursuing outside interests.
Right. Like getting engaged to someone.
Right.
Right.
We're not going to do the Beatles thing first?
Yes.
No, we can talk about this and just get it out of the way.
It's up to you. But yes. So were you done with the Paul quotes, or were
no, there's more Paul quotes. But
Yeah.
if you'd rather talk about the other thing,
It's your show, Steve.
it was an odd thing to bring up in the middle of the Beatles discussion.
It seemed apropos, given what we were talking about.
All right.
More on that later, I guess.
So Paul goes on to say, she's great. She really is all right. They just want to be near each other.
Yeah. Referring to Yoko.
Referring to Yoko and John.
Not anyone that we know.
Paul continues, I just think it's silly for anyone to say, no, you can't. Meaning you can't, to tell John that you can't have this, you can't bring this girl around.
Well, you could. He actually says later, yeah, we if we had someone in charge of all this, they would say, don't bring your girls around.
Yeah,
So,
but they would say the same about Linda and about
yes. Patty was also
Patty,
seen
yeah.
in part 2, yeah. George is, I don't know what she was at that point.
Yeah.
I believe they had just gotten engaged.
Oh, okay. So Paul continues, it's John's decision and it's none of our business. But then he says, and this is the most stunning thing to me, perhaps in the entirety of the entire 8 hours
Really?
of the experience. He says, it's going to be such a comical thing, like in 50 years' time, they broke up because Yoko sat on an amp. What? John started bringing this girl around. As though, wouldn't it be funny if people thought Yoko broke up the Beatles?
Yeah.
If we could convince the world that that's what happened. And, of course, that's exactly what ends up happening.
Yeah.
But then Paul adds, and then there were two. And you can see his eyes are starting to tear up.
Yeah.
Because he and Ringo are the only two Beatles in the studio. There are 50 people in the studio, but there are only two Beatles.
Yeah. And Ringo looks miserable. Paul
He
looks
looks
like he's about
miserable.
to cry.
Yeah, but Ringo also looks teary,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So then Brighton Beach. Now, the original idea for the Get Back project was for the Beatles to write, rehearse in a fortnight an album's worth of new material, or new to the audience.
Which sounds insane.
Yeah, but they're
Why
the Beatles.
they thought they could do this is insane.
If anybody could have pulled that off, it was the Beatles.
Right.
So the culmination is meant to be a television special where they perform in front of a live studio audience. Not necessarily a studio, though, because they're considering, well, the director is really, really, really pushing Libya as a location.
Yeah.
So after the whole Yoko discussion, Brighton Beach is mentioned as a possible venue for the concert and TV special. And Linda says she likes the idea of Brighton Beach as a location. And then Paul jokingly says, just stay out of this, Yoko.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that part.
You realize, Chris, and I only thought of this today as I was rewatching parts of this, that may have been the first time in history that the term Yoko was applied to mean meddling gal pal.
Yeah, I had the exact same thought.
And we saw it. We saw it happen. Isn't that fantastic?
It was a historic moment.
But of course, he's also making fun of how those around the band are making Yoko out to be this, divisive force.
Yeah.
So there's that element too. Paul didn't entirely mean it the way the rest of us have used it over the past half century plus. So then John phones the studio. And Paul has a word with him. John agrees to come in.
Oh, and when they told him that John was on the phone, Paul's mood changed entirely. Like, you could see, like, he was just waiting for, like, God, I hope he calls. That's really, his mood changed entirely at that point.
So it was kind of like a relationship.
Yeah.
Like a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Not literally, but had the same qualities as far as needing the other person around.
Right.
So, yeah, John agrees to come in, and the two meet for lunch in the studio canteen. Their conversation is secretly recorded through a bugged flower pot.
Yeah,
So, do you remember what they talked about?
I do. It really, because the whole thrust of Paul's conversation was that maybe Yoko was an issue, and that's what was causing George to make the decision he had made. But John brings it right back to what we'd been led to believe at the end of part one, which is that no, he's really actually frustrated with Paul.
Yeah, which is what we actually saw unravel.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about that last week, was Paul had tried to become the leader of the band because Brian Epstein, their manager, had died, and there was no one taking that role. And Paul just wanted to keep the Beatles going.
It was a default position.
Yeah, he fell into the leadership role, and their conversation was really about, like, you know, we need a leader, but none of us want any one of the other ones to be the leader. You know, so where do we go from here? And you know, George doesn't like to be. George had grown to a stage where he didn't like other people telling him what to do. You know, we've all gotten there at some point in our life. So you know, it was a very understanding conversation that they had. You know, I don't know. What do you have on that?
No, I just have what resulted. But yeah, during that secretly recorded conversation, we learned that John also feels the same way about Paul.
Right.
Being too much of a leader or questioning anyone's criticism of him as far as what he wants people to play and how he wants things to sound. He says, sometimes you're right, but sometimes you're wrong, like we all are.
Yeah.
But there's no telling you, he basically says.
Yeah, I guess Paul, he wanted the songs done his way. And I guess John and George felt like they were more accommodating with their own compositions in how much they would change them or vary from their original vision or whatever. Whereas they felt Paul was uncompromising in what he wanted out of his own songs.
Right. So I guess the whole thing was, and John says, you know, sometimes I'm that way too, but you're that way
All the
even
time.
more so.
Yeah.
And George is basically tired of that, is the point John's trying to make.
Yeah.
And that's the entirety of the issue that's going on right now. It's nothing that can't be fixed. Let's get him to come back in. So that's what they do. They decide to contact George, and it turns out that he's left that London to go home to Liverpool. He'll return in 2 days' time. So the rest decide to rehearse the songs they've been working on, but mainly Don't Let Me Down.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. They go into Get Back. It really seems like Don't Let Me Down was the only song they rehearsed in the whole movie. Now, it's the following day. Now, when discussing part one, we noted how many Abbey Road and solo songs were already knocking about during these sessions. Well, someone asked Paul if he writes songs on piano or guitar. Do you remember this part?
I do not.
And Paul says, oh, it's whatever I'm near, really. So they just come to you? Yes, I had one this morning. He's sitting on the piano.
Right.
And he starts to play a basic version of Backseat of My Car, which he wouldn't record for another 2 years.
No, I do not remember this.
That had come to him that morning, and this is the beginning of the session that day. So he was already, I mean, it wasn't complete, but...
Oh, Backseat of My Car. Yes.
From Ram?
Yeah.
So Wednesday, they meet with George, and all parties agree to change the direction of the Get Back project. There will be no TV special. The recording will resume at the new Apple Studios built by Magic Alex.
Yes. We haven't really delved much into the Magic Alex saga.
Now, shall I tell the folks a little more about this guy?
Please.
Than perhaps they saw in this film if they have watched it?
Yeah.
Okay, here's a little about this cat. He was a TV repairman who came from Greece. And what he did was he invented a box with light bulbs in it. And by that, I mean he plugged some colored light bulbs into a box. And the thing was completely useless, but it impressed John Lennon, who met Alex, I believe, at the same gallery where John met Yoko.
Right.
So John was so impressed, Alex was brought into the Beatles fold.
You forgot to mention the name of the box. It was called the Nothing Box.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, it was in the title. So I guess John appreciated a good scam or a good joke, and he decided, yeah, let's give this guy a title. So with that title, and I believe it was head of Apple Electronics, something to that effect. I have to be careful. I mean, he is dead, but he did sue during his lifetime about people getting any aspect of his career incorrect. My opinion is it's because they got it right, because there are so many sources on all these things I'm about to say, Chris.
Yeah. I think you're on safe ground.
Well, all this guy did was promise technological developments that never surfaced. And I have a short list here, Chris, if you're interested.
I am.
Okay. Wallpaper speakers. Then, you'd put wallpaper on your walls and sound would come through them.
Yes.
I think we already have that. We just heard a train go by.
Yeah. Well, they're actually still working on similar things to this day.
Well, but
They
have they
haven't quite
succeeded?
achieved them yet.
This guy promised them, well, all he needed was, a certain amount of money from John Lennon, and he'd be
Right.
able to. Okay, paint for cars that could change color by flicking a switch.
Cool. Very cool.
Cool. Possible?
I think they have that now.
What?
Many years later. Well, you remember those T-shirts back when we were in high school?
Oh, yeah,
where
yeah.
They would change color
If they got wet?
based on your body temperature.
Body temperature, yeah.
Yeah. So he was on the right track with that.
Let me read that to you again, Chris. Paint for cars. Paint that could change color by flicking a switch.
Yeah. I don't know.
How about this?
I think Elon Musk might be working on that one. I don't know.
A force field to surround the homes of the Beatles.
All right, now that's a little bit crazy.
Paint that can make anything invisible. But I guess here's the catch. Everything in the world has to be painted the same color.
Right.
That's a way to do it. That's not impossible.
Right.
It would just take a lot of work and a lot of cooperation. He promised what would become caller ID, but that appears to have been more of a prediction than anything he was actually developing. All of these promises and predictions were abandoned when a mysterious fire destroyed his laboratory.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Now, did you mention the was it a combined bass and rhythm guitar with a revolving neck that he gave a prototype to John?
We actually see that in the film.
Right.
And
It's made out of styrofoam because this is, well, it's not a prototype. It's a mock-up. And then when John sees it, he laughs his ass off and says, tell him to build a prototype, not a mock-up made out of styrofoam.
Now, there are double neck guitars.
Right. That's not what this was.
No, it was
Revolving neck guitar.
yeah, strings on one side and strings on the other. Both sides of the neck had strings going up and down them. It'd probably be very difficult to play without accidentally playing the other side, unless there was a pickup you could turn down.
I can't imagine anyone in the world being able to play this instrument.
It seems very difficult and unnecessary.
Right.
In 1967, the Beatles opened their Apple boutique store in London. For the opening, Magic Alex proposed and was commissioned at great expense to provide what he called an artificial sun to light up the night sky. Now, when it came time to demonstrate it, Alex claimed that there was not a strong enough energy supply to operate it, which the Beatles saw as a satisfactory explanation. You know what else Alex liked to do?
I can't even imagine.
He liked to complain about the subpar capabilities of the EMI studios at Abbey Road. You know, where studio marvels like Strawberry Fields Forever, A Day in the Life, I Am the Walrus, The Dark Side of the Moon.
All subpar.
He felt the Beatles deserved better, and he was just the man to provide it. What do you know, Chris?
Well, I know that he built a studio to his own specifications in the basement of that building.
Right, in the basement of the Apple offices.
Yes.
Yeah.
And well, to quote the film that we watched, there was a lot of interference and a lot of static. And I'm not going to say it. It was watch one of our first few shows,
Yeah,
and you'll get an idea.
Anything from seasons 1 and 2,
Yeah.
and you'll see what the Beatles were dealing with
Yes.
when they started to take advantage of their new luxurious
Magic
Apple
Alex
Studios.
Studio, yeah.
Yeah.
So they solved that by bringing in 2 4-track recorders and loaning the stuff that George Harrison had laying around his house to build their own studio.
And you
that
know
was
where
far superior.
You know where they borrowed the 4-track recorders?
From the Beach Boys?
No. EMI Studios in Abbey Road.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. All that, by the way, all those technical difficulties at the new studio, that probably was a surprise to nobody but 4 people.
Yeah.
So in total, it is said that Magic Alex's antics cost the Beatles, and this is adjusted for inflation, the equivalent of 5.32 million pounds over his association with the band.
Yeah.
You want some more about Alex? This is post-Beatles.
Sure.
In the 1970s, he began marketing bulletproof vehicles.
Well, that's a thing. The president has one. The Pope has one.
Right. Are any of those built by a TV repairman?
I don't know.
But this project garnered him a few government contracts around the world.
Oh, really?
King Hussein of Jordan, for instance, was one of his clients. So he sent the king a fleet of vehicles, which, of course, immediately his security officers tested with rounds of live ammo. That's what you do, right?
Right.
Well, the bulletproof cars actually turned out to be more dangerous than regular cars.
So the bullet penetrated the car and then ricocheted around, killing everyone on board.
Not quite, but almost. The bulletproof glass he put in there not only shattered, but the glass itself was so thick, it would basically stab the crap out of anybody who was in the vehicle.
You know, not to get off track, but that's actually, like, if you watch old movies of, like, pirates or, like, Revolutionary War, Napoleonic naval combat, like, that's actually how most people died, was in those battles, was the cannonballs would hit the side of the wooden ship, and much like a grenade, the wood would just explode into a million pieces.
It'd be like shrapnel.
It's shrapnel, yeah. You got killed by shrapnel, not by an actual cannonball running through you. That could only kill one person at a time. It was all similar concept. Yeah.
But that was, you're talking about Napoleon. We're talking about the 18th century. This was 1970s.
Yes, he should have learned that historic lesson.
Now, I think we talked a little about this last week. The way I've always understood history is that when George walked out, his return was contingent on Billy Preston joining the group. Now, in episode 1, he kind of plants a seed. It appears.
Yeah.
As I'm watching it, I'm thinking, oh, that's where he's planting the seed, because he mentions Billy Preston,
right,
and about how great he is, and how he's from Ray Charles's band, but he's become better than Ray Charles.
But he also mentions Nicky Hodges, who would perform with the Rolling Stones.
Nicky Hopkins.
Sorry, yes. What's the line? And now your host for the evening, the Rolling Stones.
Yes, there it is.
Terrible Liverpool accent, but very funny. Did you have that in your notes? I didn't mean to jump
I didn't
ahead.
because, see, here's what happened. I didn't get through part 2 again, so I'm not sure what came from part 2 or part 3.
Well, that was in part 2.
Okay, good.
Where,
because John had just performed as part of the Dirty Mac, and I believe also Plastic Ono, perhaps, in the TV special called The Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus, or was it a film?
it was a TV thing. I think. Yeah.
And
that was directed by the guy who was making this documentary.
right.
And so the guy, Mr. Hogg, that's the only way I remember his name.
Michael Lindsay Hogg, I believe.
Yeah, Michael Lindsay Hogg. He, being the director of both, he's like, hey, John, when you got a second, could you do an intro for this special that we just recorded? And John, hilariously, just constantly throughout this thing, keeps turning to the camera and saying, and now your host for this evening, and he's doing like a mock, the Rolling Stones. I'm sorry, my John accent is way off tonight. I'm sorry.
It was very funny,
Got here
and he did that as many times as he sang "Don't Let Me Down."
Yeah.
So that was a lot of the 8 hours is John saying that phrase. But it's kind of making fun of the fact, all right, you want me to say it? I'm going to say it like crazy. So yeah, Billy Preston, George does mention him in episode 1 before he quits. George comes back, but without Billy Preston. Now, I don't know where I've heard this. I feel like multiple sources have claimed this over the years.
I don't know.
But I really did think that George only rejoined the Beatles under the condition that Billy Preston be part of the group as well.
Yeah. Well, we learned that's definitely not the case.
That's not the case at all. Billy Preston is in London doing some television appearances, and he just happens to stop by to the Apple studios, and he just wants to say hi.
Right.
And
Before we get to that, another guy who just dropped by to say hi, comedian Peter Sellers,
Right.
who stays there all of 3 minutes before John freaks him out so badly he basically runs out of the building. John was very drunk at the time. I forget where that fits into the chronology of all this, but John is just flat on his ass drunk.
I can tell you, it's before George came. It seemed like they spent a lot more time drunk when George wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I do think it was a way of, man, we have this crisis on our hands, and let's just try to relax as best we can until we figure this out. So yeah, they're all drinking when Peter Sellers shows up.
But John seemed particularly drunk and particularly trying to mess with Peter Sellers. And so Peter Sellers gets so uncomfortable. He just like, all right, I got to go, guys. And it's funny because right after that, you see Paul, like you say, they were all drunk, but Paul is clearly frustrated at John. And he says this line, which I wrote down. It seemed so weird to me. He says, he's trying to say, John, you need some kind of like direction. He says, to wander aimlessly is very unswinging. Which I feel like that was the genesis of Austin Powers.
Yeah.
It's very unswinging, baby.
I didn't mean to step on that, but when you said that, I didn't pick that up watching it, but when you said it, yeah, that definitely brings to mind Austin Powers.
Yeah. But that was all before George came back. And then, but yeah, it was very, So Peter Sellers just happened to drop by. And then later, Billy Preston just happens to drop by.
And don't they also just happen to have an electric piano, his instrument of choice?
They had just brought it in, like the scene before that. Yeah, a brand new electric piano.
None of us play one of these, but who knows? We might need it someday.
Well, no, John said he had 2 of them in his home. So
okay.
he did play it. And I'm sure Paul did too. Maybe even Ringo. But
well, of course, they all played piano. But
yeah.
I'm not sure if any of them had used one on a Beatles record.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then who walks in? The preeminent electric pianist in rock and roll. So Billy Preston walks in, and is he even talked into joining the band, or is it more of a, well, hey, we have a piano.
It almost feels like they kind of bamboozled him, because they're like, yeah, we got some songs we need somebody to play electric piano on. You know, do you want to give it a shot? And then, sorry, and then sorry, and then later on, they're like, yeah, man, who's the guy I said from the Rolling Stones, Nicky
Hopkins.
Nicky Hopkins. If we had him here, we'd have to pay him session musician rates. Whereas this guy, we got him playing for free. It seems like they kind of roped him into all this, and he's just like, I'm just happy to be here.
But his next 2 solo records were released on Apple.
Well, yeah, I guess that was kind of the payoff.
Yeah, the compensated. So, I mean, he was adequately...
oh, for sure. But it was kind of like more of a handshake deal than, like they said, paying the session musician rates that they would have had to do otherwise.
Right. And when you think about it, most of the songs that eventually made the album, that became Let It Be, you really identify the sound with Billy Preston's keyboard playing. It's hard to think of, well, some of those, like 2 of Us doesn't really count as one that I identify with Billy Preston. But, yeah, Get Back, the solo he does in
right.
Get Back.
Yeah. Yeah, he does do a solo in that.
That's pretty iconic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a big part of it.
And, of course, Don't Let Me Down, I realize it wasn't on the album, but that's definitely a Billy Preston dominant song.
I guess, man. I feel like they could have had George Martin play it. I don't know. We see him briefly in this.
Yeah.
Which we hadn't seen him in part 1.
And at this point, he's the begrudged former producer. But they still need his help, and they rely on him.
How did that, like, that's never explained. How did that happen?
Well,
they got Glyn Johns to do this, and John hilariously refers to him as Glynis throughout this entire thing, which is the female version of his name. I don't know, but I thought it was funny.
I think the reason was they wanted to get away from studio trickery, and they wanted something more Phil Spector-like. Now, Phil does eventually come in. We don't
those
see him
two things are at odds.
We don't. Well, yeah, but I mean, in terms of basic, not orchestral, more.
Okay.
But then again, but what does Phil end up doing? He puts strings all over the record.
Well, their original intention with this project was to just do the whole thing live. Like, they wouldn't have pre-recorded any of these songs. So in that sense, I guess it makes sense that they would go with a different producer than George Martin.
Right.
But yeah, we do see him here. And man, it's so weird because they're talking about, we need direction, we need a leader. Like, here's this guy, and he looks
You're talking about George Martin.
George Martin, and he looks like a guy who walked out of the late 1920s, early 1930s. He's got the slick back hair that you associate with that time period. He's wearing a suit when no one else is. Like, it just seemed like, man, why didn't they just get him to be more involved in what they were doing?
Well, maybe they didn't consider him a business person, and they needed a business person who had leadership skills.
And they do introduce. This is where I started falling asleep. But they do introduce, only because it was late, not because it was boring. But they do introduce Alan Klein.
Alan Klein, yeah.
Will we see more of him in part 3?
He's mentioned. We don't actually see him.
Well, I guess that story isn't within the context. That was later in 1969 when they fell apart.
Right. And there's no epilogue, we should say.
Yeah.
There's no epilogue. I don't think that's giving anything away.
Okay.
Billy Preston comes in, knocks out of the park, and I believe it's John. See, I have this in my handwritten notes. I believe it's John who first says, I'd like him to be in the band. I'd like a fifth Beatle.
Yeah.
So John turns out, not George, to be the one to put that out there.
Yeah.
And I think John is also the first person to use the phrase fifth Beatle in reference to Billy Preston. And we see that historic event occur.
No, I can guarantee you that's not the case because I read a very lengthy Beatles monograph about a decade ago, and there were all kinds of people claiming to be the fifth Beatle. Everyone from Neil Aspinall to a random reporter who would hang out with them for a few weeks.
Larry Kane?
Yeah, there was a lot of people who would make that claim.
Right,
so.
Making that claim. But I'm talking specifically about Billy Preston being referred to that way.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and probably the most legitimate claim outside of Pete Best or Stu Sutcliffe.
Right, who were actually fifth and sixth members of the band.
So I don't remember. I could be leaving a lot out. From what I remember, Billy Preston comes in and basically becomes a natural Beatle. I didn't get to rewatch the rest of part 2. Do you remember anything I may be forgetting?
It ends with, and we should say how it ends because last week ended on a cliffhanger, which we've resolved, tonight as we talk about it. But this week, part 2 ends on a cliffhanger of Paul is sitting there kind of strumming his guitar, very unsatisfied with, we said this was kind of his project that he had tried to force through, this whole, let's put together enough songs in 2 weeks to have a live concert at the end. He's very unsatisfied with where they've ended up, which is just, we're just going to eventually record these songs in the studio in their final form. He's like, man, it's very, paraphrase, very anticlimactic.
Yeah, also very, may I add, run-of-the-mill for a band who, for their past couple of albums, had really changed the game with each release.
Right.
As to what a rock band could do and how you could play with the form and also play with the studio.
Yes. So then the way part 2 ends is, I believe it was Glenn Johns and the Mr. Hogg guy, Boss Hogg. But it could have been 2 other people. But they take Paul aside, and it's on camera, and they start explaining, hey, we have an idea where maybe you can get the climactic thing that you're looking for. And you see, you don't hear them, but you see Paul's whole expression just be like, oh, yeah. Like he's really into it. And, of course, we all know what it is, but it's not said yet. So they'll get to that in part 3.
Okay, well, I look forward to that because part 3 pays off in many ways, in many unexpected ways. If you did see the first film, and you have. You don't think you have, but you have.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
Probably in a sneaker commercial or something.
But you've definitely seen the Beatles rooftop concert, but you've never seen it in the way it's presented, when it's presented fully with more cameras, more footage, and more detail. And there's an unsung hero during the rooftop concert, and we're not going to talk about this now.
I haven't seen it yet. So.
But, well, take a look at, see if you can guess who the unsung hero is.
Okay.
During the rooftop concert.
Well, I hope it's Linda's daughter, because in the very beginning of part 3, which I did see, she was just delightful.
Well, I think
she was wonderful.
I think you're going to have a lot to say about Linda's daughter.
Oh,
next
okay.
week.
All right. Well, I'll watch the rest and we'll I guess that's the end of our Beatles.
I'm definitely going to have a lot to say about Linda's daughter next week.
Okay. So, Steve.
Yeah? Oh, yeah, that thing you kept bringing up for no pig and reason.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Something very important happened this week. I was, a few weeks ago, you and I were hanging out after the show.
Yeah.
And I'd mentioned to you that the phrase y'all is, that's very uncomfortable for someone from our part of the world to say. It's like a Southern thing or maybe even an African-American thing, right? Like, guys from around here, we tend to say you guys.
Hey, you guys!
And substitute that.
Right.
Which is kind of a stupid thing to say, especially if you're addressing a group of females, right? So I was just musing out loud to you like, there's got to be a better option, right? And you said to me, how about everyone? Like say, hey, everyone, instead of hey, y'all, or hey, you guys, right? And I was like, yeah, I get it, but it still feels like there should be a better thing. So recently, as of a few days ago, Steve, I discovered, and I don't know if you know this or not, but an old plural form of you was ye, Y-E, as in God rest ye merry gentlemen, a Christmas song
So
you would hear that.
That's how that applies.
Yes. So we need to bring back ye. We are addressing a group of people. Am I wrong about this?
I think we can do that.
I think we should get behind
We can
this.
start that right from the show.
In fact, I'm going to say Hamilton, Tiger Cats, and Max Verstappen and Red Bull Racing. We support ye this weekend.
All right. Thank ye for joining us this week. See, we can do this.
Yes, we can do this.
We know what we're doing.
Let's bring it back.
I agree. And also, let's make pop-de-ping the general term for microwave.
That's already started. I saw people using that
Okay, well, see,
in the comments in our show.
It's already taking effect. I couldn't be more grateful, and we appreciate the continued support of ye.
Now, what's up on the screen? What is this?
Well, we'll get to that, Chris.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure it's the next thing, though.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So should we do this? Should we talk about the thing that...
Is there something you want to talk about?
I guess I do have a responsibility with the audience to share my life. And
Dude, after what I did a month ago, yeah, you do.
Okay, fair enough. A few days ago, the A-Bomb and I got engaged.
All right.
All right, we did it.
Congratulations.
All right. Do you have any questions about it, or
That's all.
is that enough? Is the announcement enough?
I thought we were going to have the A-Bomb on the phone, and we were going to...
Well, I don't know if we can, because last time we had her on the phone, there was a static issue.
That resulted in a meltdown of the show. Yes, you're right.
I think there was a fire somewhere in the studio as a result. Chris, is there any question you have for me about this major life event?
No.
Okay, so there's nothing you think the audience... I mean, obviously you wanted the audience to know what happened.
Well, I guess the obligatory question is, have you set a date?
Yes, I believe October 15th of next year. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a long way away. So it must be a big
Well,
wedding then.
No, not a big wedding at all.
Then why so far away?
Because she wants to get married in October, and I asked her in a December. So...
You know what? My parents also got married in October, and October is my favorite month of the year.
That's a great month.
It's a great month. It's
but
beautiful.
Incidentally, my parents got married in October, and I don't think it lasted more than, I guess, 4 years, maybe.
Anytime 50% on anything.
Yeah,
with marriage,
I
Steve.
understand, Chris.
Yeah.
I understand. But we're also, I don't know. We're not kids. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, we're late 30s, as you say, Chris.
Right.
So it's a lot different when you're not older, but not in your 20s. Put it that way.
Yep.
There.
I'm very happy for you guys.
Well,
I'm sure everyone who listens to the show is very happy for you.
Yeah, I
guys.
think so. I think anybody who listens and has heard her contributions to the show,
Right.
They're big fans of hers as well. And also her previous work with our friend Karen from Philly and the show they used to do, Monumental Waste of Time. I think those folks will be happy too.
Yep.
And she's a great gal, and everything's going to be fantastic. And you can't ask for better.
Yep. I'm very happy for you.
Now, I do have some sad news.
Uh-oh.
This week, there is no movie of the week of the week,
Yeah.
per se. It wasn't for lack of trying, Chris. I did scout quite a few made-for-TV movies of the 70s and 80s, and this search did provide something I'm going to share with you now, but I'll warn you, there's no resolution to this, just curiosity. Not yet, Jim. I was watching a motion picture called Cracked Up from 1987,
Okay.
in which a high school athlete, like so many others before and after him, gets addicted to crack while trying to impress Kim Delaney.
Yeah, that'll happen.
I know. I feel like we were all warned about this a million times as kids.
Yeah.
You know, stop caring about what Kim Delaney thinks about you.
Yeah.
It can only lead to no good.
I mean, that was like a Nancy Reagan press conference at one point.
Right. Just say no to Kim Delaney.
Right.
Now, history remembers it differently, but the original phrase was just say no to Kim Delaney.
Yeah.
Now, of course, John, who's the main character of Cracked Up, did not heed those warnings. He ignored all those posters we had in every school bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
He even refused to listen to the charity single by Men Without Hats that discouraged youth from trying to get Kim Delaney to think you're cool. Now, the version of Cracked Up I watched, and I didn't watch all of it, contained some of the ads from the original broadcast. But during one of those breaks, a strange clip was inserted that I'm pretty sure was not part of ABC's airing of the film. And we're going to see some of this right now. Chris, take a look at this.
You think you're cheating when you're eating.
Well, that is, if you have time.
Sure.
Great. See you then.
Okay, pause. We're going to come back to the pause. So what does that look like to you, Chris?
It looks like the beginning of a music video.
A music video?
Yeah, like I'm expecting Motley Crue to start playing right after that.
Oh, Motley Crue might have been involved, but it's something members of Motley Crue have participated in, it looks like to me. But not a music video. It looks to me like, well, you know what I'm getting at.
Pornography?
Yes, it looked like maybe something from the 80s. That's what it might have looked like.
Well, a lot of 80s music videos did start off the same way a porno video would start off.
Right, but
they just went in different tangents from there.
Okay, but see, here's what got my attention, and here's why. Let's look at the names in the credits here. Okay, Ray is played by Phil Bangs.
Okay.
Yvette, Vicky Benson, not very. Mona, Robin Menken, Jeff Prettyman. Okay, pause again. Boyfriend is played by Prescott Niles. You know the name Prescott Niles, Chris?
I do not.
Well, that's a name I know well, because much like myself, Prescott Niles is a bassist, best known as a surviving member of the Knack. You know them, Otara, My Sharona, Frustrated. Now, I say surviving member because two of his former Knack bandmates have passed away. Drummer Bruce Gary from a brain tumor, and singer-guitarist Doug Feiger from trying to impress Kim Delaney. So, seeing that name in these credits, I asked myself, as I tend to do, what's going on over here? So I checked into it, and Prescott Niles did indeed appear in a 1987 film called Hollywood Erotic Film Festival.
Oh, my.
Described by IMDb as 10 erotic vignettes from 8 different directors. Niles appears in a segment entitled Thin Walls, which I gather we just saw the ending. From the bare bones info I've been able to uncover,
Yeah.
it appears this film is merely racy.
Yeah, I believe this would fall under the category of softcore pornography rather than hardcore.
Risque, probably R-rated
Yeah.
if it had a rating.
Yeah.
It's not full on what you might expect from the title or the Magic Alex production value we just witnessed. But I can't say that for sure because it's completely unavailable, which is fine, but it would have been a much more interesting film to analyze than Cracked Up, in my opinion. But Chris, when you saw, I guess you saw the link to Cracked Up and you thought, wow, this looks great.
Right.
So you do want to talk about this one next week.
Absolutely.
All right.
I think it might be the best one we've done yet. It also caters to two of my most strident interests, track and field and intoxication. So this is right up my alley.
It ticks 2 chief boxes.
Yeah. Now, so just so I understand it, this little clip that you showed us was smack in the middle of some other thing?
They film Cracked Up. The version that's on YouTube, the one we'll post the link to, so people will see this themselves. If they want to check out the film in advance, they'll be treated to this, the end of that film, or this part of that film, this segment.
Yeah.
It's 8 different or 10 different
Yeah.
segments. They will see that last scene and these credits jammed in to a tape of the broadcast of Cracked Up.
So this was a failure of the person who uploaded it to YouTube. It did not get broadcast this way on
No.
ABC or something.
No, not at all.
Gotcha.
Not
Okay.
at all. If you don't mind, however, Chris,
Sure.
I'd like to cut a PSA right now.
Okay. Well, we did we do one last week? I don't think we did. So.
Yeah, we did.
Oh. No, I don't remember.
We did. It was about the rules to banging your wife's body.
Oh, right. Body donor what? Recipient?
Oh,
There may have been a misspelling somewhere along the line.
It's one of those things, Jim, that there's nothing you can do about after the fact, and I didn't even notice until probably my second time going through it. So, yeah.
Spell check.
Body donor recipient.
But yes, we have a new PSA now.
We have a new PSA because in the last couple of moments, we've introduced a serious issue that's plaguing our society. And I think it's our responsibility to use our wild popularity to put a stop to it.
Sure.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to put this here so the networks can cut it up.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm just going to put a space for editing so the networks can cut it up because they're going to want to air this. We'll provide it for free. Right. Okay. Hi, folks. Steve Rees here, the bull of American broadcasting, alongside the great Chris Morganti. And we're here with an important message. Yes, you've enjoyed her long run on NYPD Blue and her brief stint on CSI Miami. Chris?
Perhaps you even caught her during her 6-season run on Lifetime's Army Wives.
And if you're like so many other Americans, you thought all the while, I would do anything to make Kim Delaney think I'm cool.
But have you seen her in this?
I've seen soldiers come home with painful, life-altering injuries born of their time in service. I've attended numerous military funerals, including that of my best friend's son, and my heart has been broken on numerous occasions. As I try to comfort wives, husbands, families, fathers, children, loved ones made good. What I've learned is the Constitution Center. Knowing no words, no talk.
All right, Chris, is there anything you'd like to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Well, I think John Lennon would be saying it would take it down a notch. If I'm reading that segment correctly. Very intoxicated, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it appears. Don't know for sure. She was presenting an award to, I have it written down somewhere, former Secretary of Defense.
Oh God. Who were former secretaries of
Gates.
Defense? Okay.
Gates.
Right.
Yeah, I can't find it, but I'm pretty sure it's Gates.
All right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the gal. America will bend over backwards to impress. Bad idea. We just want to let people know that's a bad idea.
So what happened at the end there? They just they gave her the
They went on with the program
Yeah.
and pulled her off stage.
yeah. Oh man, that's embarrassing.
No, terribly embarrassing.
Yeah.
And and that's why I was kind of conflicted about putting this out there again.
Like it's one thing to kind of forget what you were supposed to be talking about. Maybe she didn't have her notes with her, whatever. But that definitely seemed like some chemicals were involved.
Yeah, there was something.
Yeah.
She probably should have thought better of ingesting prior to making that speech.
Yeah.
Now, see, I feel a little. I feel as though I dropped the ball on something. I feel perhaps you thought I had some fantastic story about my engagement that I don't have.
Dude, no.
It was just two people decided to get married.
You're right. I demand an apology for your engagement not being exciting enough for me. No, dude, it is what it is.
But I'm a
We're all
believer in
happy
if
for
the
you.
audience is going to be introduced to something, you need some kind of a payoff. And I
Dude,
really
the
don't think
payoff
there is,
is-
apart from I asked her to marry me, and she said yes, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone. We've been together 3.5 years. And it's, I mean, we live together. It's nothing particularly earth-shattering. It's just to make this decision, I guess. I mean, she was very sweet, and it was a beautiful moment. And I'm just relieved that she was surprised. I thought she knew it was coming, and she apparently did not.
Well, that's great.
So
man.
I think we can leave it at that.
Yeah, we can leave it at that. You know, I didn't mean to try and make it into something. It was, it's something that everyone who listens to the show would want to know about.
And it is fair. You are right. I mean, we've all talked about personal things, and that's okay, Chris. Yes, and that's very personal, and also something that I think people will enjoy hearing.
Well, hey, man, we got a big game coming up Sunday.
Very excited. Very excited. Now, by the time people see this, both competitions will have occurred.
That's
Victor
true.
will have been decided.
Yes.
Which we do know that. So don't give us a hard time. We know you should know we tape these things on Friday, and they go up on Sunday night, Monday morning, whenever. And get used to it.
I'm pretty sure at least one Hamilton's going to win this weekend. So,
Well, in that case, I think we did it.
all right.
And join us next week for part 3 of Get Back, and also the movie of the week, Cracked Up.
I'm very excited about this.
I'm glad. I'm relieved. I wasn't sure you'd be into any of the movies I ended up watching parts of. I watched a lot of them, Chris, trying to find the right one. And
You're doing the Lord's work over there, Steve. I can't get through 5 minutes of these goddamn things. But I'm very excited about this one. So hopefully some of our audience can check it out beforehand as well, and we'll all have a good time with it.
yeah, we'll throw it out there, and please check it out. And if you don't mind me saying, I'll leave another hint. Well, there's a surprise ending. I mean, an ending I didn't expect. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I basically skimmed it. And yeah, I wasn't expecting. I'm not even sure this sort of thing can happen, but that's the beauty of these movies. That's the beauty.
All right.
They don't make any goddamn sense, Chris.
Exactly.
Well, in that case, Chris Regani, I'm Steve Rees. For Jim, can't say the surname. For Hamboy, Oski Wiwi.
Oski Wawa.
All the Megan Howe.
Tigers
eat 'em
and Max
raw.
Verstappen.
Yes,
Eat them raw.
We did it.